I insisted my son miss his commencement since his twin sister flunked. When he declared, "I'm attending," I messaged the university claiming he misrepresented facts, compelled our family to boycott the ceremony, and treated his sister to a trip instead. Now my son's severed ties, our $8,500 allowance vanished. Then his attorney phoned. What if I told you I destroyed my son's graduation, then lost the family farm, all in the span of 2 weeks? One betrayal started with my own hand, the other, well, that came from the very people I was trying to protect. And it all began because I tried to fix something that wasn't mine to mend. My name's Charles, I'm 49. For as long as I can remember, I've been a farmer. Corn, soy, hay, whatever the fickle weather decides to bless us with. I'm not the hero, not the star. I'm the background guy, the one who just fixes things. The one who says, "I'll take care of it," and then just does. My ledger's in a grease-stained notebook. I know every cough and rattle of my old John Deere. And my coffee? It's strong enough to wake dead roosters. I'm also a dad, to twins, Ethan and Ellie. They're 18, good kids, but different as sun and shade. And here's the thing, I didn't set out to be the villain. I just wanted to smooth things over, like I always do. It started on a Thursday night in May. The kitchen smelled like diesel and dish soap. Ethan stood by the mudroom door, his honor cord still wrinkled from the package, grinning like the little boy who used to steal grapes from the pantry. "Dad," he beamed, tapping an envelope in his hand. "I did it. Dean's List. I'm walking on Saturday." Ellie was hunched over her laptop at the kitchen table, staring intently at that new AI Success Assistant app the school pushed all year. The program chirped every few minutes with its little tips. That night it chirped, "Recommendation: Siamese outcomes for twins to reduce comparative distress." It sounded ridiculous, like a fortune cookie written by a robot, but Ellie stared at it like gospel. "I'm not going," she said without looking up, her voice flat. "I failed calc. They held me back from walking. It's humiliating. If he goes, everyone will compare us." She said it like it was an undeniable fact, not just a feeling. A fact. I tried to be light, to brush it off. "Honey, you worked hard. You'll walk in December. We'll clap just as loud then, too." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's not the point. The point is equal treatment, the AI says." Ethan chuckled, a small, almost imperceptible sound under his breath. Just once. It wasn't mean, but it cut. Ellie heard it. "So you're better?" she snapped, her head snapping up. "No," he said, bewildered. I passed. I want to go. I earned it." The AI chimed again. "Suggested boundary. Synchronous family experience. Action: decline attendance until both siblings are ready." I should have unplugged the stupid thing right then. I should have said what I knew deep down, that fairness isn't sameness. But Ellie had that look. Her eyes wide, jaw trembling, her pride hanging by a single, fragile thread. I'd seen calves stuck in a fence, caught and panicked, one wrong move from tearing themselves apart. That was Ellie. "Maybe we do it together in December," I heard myself say, the words feeling foreign as they left my mouth. "As a family." I didn't just suggest it. I made it the rule. I opened the family group chat and typed, "Nobody goes on Saturday. Not your mother, not your cousins, not even James. We walk as one family in December." I didn't threaten anyone outright, but I called them one by one. I pushed until their maybe turned into a reluctant promise. Uncle Joe replied with a confused, "Charlie, you sure?" I called my parents directly. "If you show up for Ethan and not Ellie," I said, my voice tight, "you'll break her. I'm not letting that happen." There was a long, heavy pause, the kind that means they're letting you take responsibility so they don't have to. Mom finally sighed. "Okay, if you want it this way, we'll stay home." One by one, the relatives reacted with thumbs ups and short, guilty answers. And just like that, I didn't only miss my son's graduation. I made sure he didn't have anyone else there either. Ethan stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Dad, I'm going Saturday, Ellie whispered. Please. A familiar pressure seized my chest, that gut-wrenching clench I get when the forecast screams hail and my silage is still out. Fix it, Charles. The silent command echoed in my head. Reduce harm. Keep the peace. So, I did the thing that broke us. That night, after the house went quiet, I sat at my computer. With shaking hands, I wrote an email to the registrar, typing words I never thought I'd type. I believe my son Ethan lied about his remaining credits and eligibility to walk. I asked them to double-check his file immediately. I hit send. The second the message left my outbox, a cold dread settled deep in my gut. I knew, with absolute certainty, I'd crossed a line. Then I told Ellie to pack a bag. We'll drive to the coast, I said, forcing a smile. Just the two of us. Clear your head. Ethan knocked on my door at 6 a.m., his voice hopeful. You coming to rehearsal? I lied. Work. Fence line snapped. I'll meet you there. I didn't meet him. I put Ellie's duffel in the truck and drove east, away from the gymnasium where my son stood under fluorescent lights, waiting, his phone buzzing with a message that never came. On the highway, Ellie fell asleep. I turned on the radio, blasting it to drown out my thoughts. But in my head, it was just one sentence on repeat. What did you just do? When we got back 3 days later, a photo was waiting in the family chat. Ethan, in a cheap cap and gown, standing alone in the backyard, his tassel crooked, holding his diploma like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Under it, just a line of text. I walked without you. He didn't answer my calls for 3 days. That would have been enough to sink me. But when I went to the mailbox, just to escape the deafening kitchen silence, I found a certified letter from the county office. I didn't understand the first paragraph. The second, though, I understood perfectly. Transfer of ownership recorded. Parcel number 1183, known as Miller Farm, now held by James and Carrie Reed. James. My brother. The golden one. The one with 3 kids and a boat he barely used. I stood on the porch, the paper flapping in the wind, and it hit me. I'd lost 2 children on the same weekend. One by my own disastrous choice. The other, by a signature I didn't recognize. Let me back up. I grew up the second of 2 boys. Our father believed in work like some folks believe in church. James? He could charm a banker out of his tie. Me? I could fix a combine with 3 bolts and a prayer. Guess which skill got framed in the living room? It started small. When we were 8 and 10, Dad took us to the feed store. He let James pick a pocket knife. I got a keychain flashlight. So you can see what your brother's cutting. When James dented the truck at 16, Dad clapped him on the back. First scratch out of the way. When I asked to borrow the truck for prom, he tossed me the keys and said, No funny business. Then reminded me where the spare was, just in case I didn't notice the obvious. I learned to swallow whole. At 19, Dad blew his knee in the auger. Just like that, more work, less money. I picked up the slack. I ran dawn to dark and a little past. James visited most Sundays, dropped advice like confetti, then went home to his calm house and his wife, who ironed napkins for fun. 5 years ago, when Dad floated the idea of selling the farm, lands high, taxes higher, I panicked. I wasn't ready to see it go. So I did the math. Mortgaged $330,000 after rolling in the line of credit and the barn roof. I said the words that became my cage. I'll carry it. I'll make the payments. Keep it in the family. Mom cried. Dad shook my hand like a business partner. James hugged me and said, You're saving our legacy. I set up autopay. I sold the tractor I loved. I skipped vacations. I put off dental work and drove to town with a molar screaming, just to make the note. For 5 years I paid, month by month. Interest and principal. Penalties once when a check hiccuped and bruised my pride for a week. I have the receipts. I kept them in a shoebox labeled farm. Do not toss. I thought family meant something. I thought legacy included me by default. Mom texted me about every little thing that needed fixing. Fence wire. Sump pump. The back steps. You're handy, she'd say. Your brother's swamped. I'd show up with a toolbox and a shrug. James would show up with opinions and a latte. Then this spring, the red flags started coming in like crows. Flag 1, Mom handed me a manila envelope after Sunday lunch. Can you take this to the post office? She giggled. Taxes for the trust thingy. I looked. The return address was a law firm 3 towns over I'd never heard of. The label said, Miller Family Trust Administrative Packet. Trust what? I asked. Oh, you know. She waved her hand like it was nothing. The thing Dad set up when his knee got worse. The way you wave at a fly. Flag 2. I went to renew the farm insurance, and the agent asked me if the ownership name was still Reed Family Holdings. I paused. What holdings? He looked puzzled. That's what it's been for 2 years. He turned the screen toward me. There it was. Reed Family Holdings LLC. Manager, James Andrew Reed. My name wasn't anywhere. Not as manager, not as member, not as a footnote. I paid $2,880 in premiums and said nothing, because that's what I've always done. Flag 3. Ellie's counselor emailed me a list of parent logins for her AI assistant and asked me to ensure guardians were synced. When I clicked the link, I saw a note. Guardian 1, Carrie Reed. Guardian 2, James Reed. Guardian 3, Charles Secondary. I stared at that screen longer than I should have. How many small edits had pushed me to the edge? So I started collecting. I printed the mortgage statements from the bank. 5 years, 60 payments, my name on every line. I printed every Venmo to Dad for barn parts and every text from Mom that started with, Honey, can you? I drove to the county recorder and asked to see the deed. The woman behind the glass looked up my parcel number. Ah, she said, like she'd found a familiar recipe card. Transfer recorded last month. Grantaires, Michael and Judith Miller. Grantees, Reed Family Holdings LLC? Reed, I said, even though she'd said it already, even though I knew what it meant. As in James? I can't tell you members, she said, not unkind. LLCs, you know. Is there a life estate recorded? Right of first refusal? Anything? She scrolled. There's a trust document incorporated by reference, but I can't see it here. You'd need copies. I'll pay for copies. She printed a stack as thick as my thumb and slid it under the glass. I paid cash and walked to the truck, my heart hammering in my ears. Back home, I poured coffee and read every page like it was written in a foreign language I almost understood. That's when I saw it. Clause 4.7. Bolded like a bone under thin skin. 4.7 Satisfaction of secured obligation. In the event any beneficiary contributes payments exceeding 50% of the outstanding mortgage principal and interest within a 5-year period, a right of equitable lien shall attach to the property in favor of said beneficiary, enforceable upon alienation, encumbrance, or material misrepresentation of title. It was plain enough. I'd been paying for an equitable lien, a right my right. Except the next line turned my stomach. As amended 18 months after inception by unanimous consent of trustees. There were 3 signatures, Mom, Dad, and James. Mine wasn't required. Mine wasn't on it. The amendment struck equitable lien and replaced it with gratuitous contribution. Gratuitous. Like I tipped a bartender. I took a photo, then another, my finger pointing to 4.7. I sent it to myself. I labeled it receipt_4_7.png. That same week, Ethan texted, I'm staying with a friend. Ellie posted a photo of us at the coast, 2 cones of soft serve and a caption. Dad gets me. The comments were hearts and smile faces, the kind that feel like sand in your teeth. I sat at the table with 2 stacks, the farm stack and the kids stack. The farm stack said I was invisible on paper. The kids stack said I'd made myself invisible on purpose. And just when I thought I couldn't fall any further, my phone pinged. Payment to Ethan. $850. Declined. We'd been helping him with an apartment deposit for community college. I tried again. Declined. 2 minutes later, a text from Ethan. Please stop. I don't want your money. I stared at the number on the screen. $8,500. That's what we'd promised over 8 months to help the twins with rent and books. It was a plan I'd drawn up in January, down to the dollar, because planning is what I do. Suddenly it was gone. Not by my choice. By theirs. That night, I sat in the dark kitchen and finally let the anger have a chair. It happened on Father's Day. Of course it did. Mom called that morning. We're doing burgers at the house. Bring that potato salad everyone likes. James is bringing his new boat keys to show your dad. Boat keys? I asked like an idiot. For the lake, she said. It's good to have toys. I almost said I paid your mortgage while he bought a toy, but what came out was, we'll be there at 2. We included no one. My house was quiet. Ellie had moved back to campus early for summer classes. Ethan hadn't been home since the photo in the backyard. My ex, Laura, had texted me 2 sentences the week before. They're hurting. Give them time. I pulled into my parents' gravel drive at 1:58, because I am punctual even when I'm furious. The yard looked the way it always looks on Father's Day. Coolers sweating in the shade, kids yelling, Aunt Carol waving a spatula like a baton. James stood by the grill in a polo shirt, talking loud so everyone would know he was important. Hey, hero, he said when he saw me. Save the farm and all. Family owes you. He laughed like it was a joke he'd practiced. The laugh bounced off my chest and fell to the ground. Need a hand? I asked. We're good, he said, then slung an arm around my shoulders and steered me toward Dad's chair. Quick thing, he whispered, like we were still brothers, still on the same side. We filed a few changes with the trust to simplify. Nothing big, just structure. Clause 4.7, I said. He blinked. What? The equitable lien, the amendment, the signatures. He dropped his arm, his smile too wide, too forced. You've been reading, have you? I looked at Dad. He was cleaning his glasses, pretending he didn't hear. Mom wiped a spot on the patio table that didn't exist. I took out my phone and opened the photo. There it was, black and white, my finger pointing like an accusation. Explain this. A hush fell over the patio the way it does when a storm cloud crosses the sun. Dad cleared his throat. Son, we talked about this. You were making contributions because you love this place. You said so. I did, I said. And I meant it. But you recorded the property into an LLC with James as manager. You amended away my lien. You took my name off everything. And you did it while I made 60 payments that said otherwise. Mom's voice went small. James has children. He needs stability. I have children, I said, my voice rising slightly. They just don't talk to me because I blew their graduation, but I still have them. James folded his arms. This is a family matter. Let's not embarrass ourselves. I kept my voice even, quiet. Exact. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to set boundaries and put facts on the table. I swiped to my bank ledger. Payment, $1,542.79. Payment, $1,542.79. 60 times. Taxes. Insurance. Repairs. I saved your basement when the sump failed. I hauled Phil to the south line when the water ate the road. I paid for the new roof after a windstorm because the policy lapsed. And while I did that, you made me a donor. Aunt Carol tried to soften it. Charlie, honey, you've always been so generous. This isn't about generosity, I said, my voice cutting through her saccharine tone. This is about structure. It's about a promise. It's about not changing the rules in the fourth quarter and then handing my father's chair to the brother who brought boat keys. James' smile faltered. Watch your tone. I looked at him. Really? Looked at the tan from the lake, the watch that probably cost more than my truck, the air of a man who's always landed soft. No, I said. You watch yours. I turned to Dad. I want the amendment reversed. I want my lien recorded. Either that, or you cut me a check for the total of my contributions plus interest, and I walk. But the era of me paying while being erased is over. Silence. Then Dad did what he always does. He tried to minimize. Let's not make this legal. We're family. I nodded. We are. Which is why I showed up to say it, not mail it. But I brought this too. I slid a clean, plain envelope from my jacket. My own letter, drafted the night before with help from a notary in town. Notice of intent, I said. If we don't resolve this in 30 days, I'll file for an equitable lien and petition the court. It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary. Before anyone could speak, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered because I needed a break from my own heartbeat. Mr. Reed, the voice said, crisp and professional. This is Daniel Chin, counsel for Ethan Reed. I went cold. Counsel for my son? Yes, he said. He's retained me. We're calling regarding the email to his registrar. We have it. We're requesting an immediate retraction and a letter of correction for his file. Additionally, we'd like to discuss the $8,500 support agreement you offered in January and the messages that followed. I stared at the grass. He hired a lawyer. He really did. He's 18, Chin said. He's allowed. Can you talk now? Everyone on the porch watched me hold that phone like a hand grenade. Yes, I said, my voice steady. I can talk. And that was the moment everything shifted. James stopped smiling. Mom's hand stopped moving. Dad finally looked at me. The phone stayed by my ear. The porch went quiet. And I said the thing I should have said before any AI chirped at us. I was wrong. The call started an hour later. A wave I could not stop. First came the texts. You're selfish. From James. Think about the kids. From Mom, as if mine weren't in the crosshairs. You're ruining us. From a number that turned out to be my cousin using Dad's phone. Then the voicemails, 27 in one afternoon. A chorus of adults who'd never been told no. Petition? Are you insane? You'll bankrupt your mother over paperwork. Grow up. Ethan's manipulating you. Ellie is fragile. You should protect her. Sell your truck before you talk about money. Every barb found an old bruise and pressed. I didn't yell back. I didn't send essay texts like I used to, explaining every choice until I was bleeding words. I did what my attorney, a woman named Ortiz, recommended by a neighbor, told me to do: less mouth, more paper. I hired her with money I'd been saving for a new baler. She suggested 3 steps. First, we drafted a formal demand to revoke the 4.7 amendment and recognize my equitable lien. We attached copies of my payments, the text chain where Dad used the phrase, "You keep us afloat," and the insurance receipt with my name when the policy lapsed. Ortiz flagged the amendments: unanimous consent, language. Trustee duties require loyalty, she said. They can't amend to benefit an insider to the detriment of a contributor without disclosure. Not when there's a schedule of contributions. Second, we sent a letter to the registrar retracting my late-night email, explaining it was made in error and under personal duress, and we asked that any note be removed from Ethan's record. I signed it. I did it without bargaining. Ortiz CC'd Attorney Chin, who replied with a professional, "Received," that felt like being let out of a chokehold. Third, Ortiz's paralegal filed a notice with the recorder. Claim of equitable interest. Parcel number 1183. It wasn't a lien yet, not formally, but it was a flag on the field. If anyone tried to sell, they'd see my name. Meanwhile, I tightened my life like a belt. I set my phone to favorites only. I told my parents we'd communicate through counsel. I blocked James for 30 days. Not forever, just enough to breathe. The farm didn't care about any of it. Cows still bawled at dawn. The irrigation lines still coughed at 4 a.m. I fixed it in the dark, headlamp buzzing, crickets loud enough to drown the anxiety. Work has always been my medicine. It became my cleanest room. At night, the house was too quiet. I built a new routine out of simple things: sweep the mudroom, brew tea, read Clause 4.7 like a prayer. I was learning how to say no without hating anyone. Sleep came in little pieces at first, then in longer stretches when my brain realized nobody would walk in and ask me for something at 2 a.m. The calls kept coming, but with boundaries, they lost teeth. Without immediate access to my attention, people have to live with their own voices. It's amazing what goes quiet when you don't feed it. Ellie texted me on a Tuesday. "You made me feel seen. I'm sorry it hurt Ethan." I read it 3 times. Then I typed slowly. "I love you. I messed up. I won't pick between you again. You get December. Your day. Not his. Not shared. Yours." She didn't reply. That was okay. Apologies are seeds. They sprout when they're ready. Ethan called on a Wednesday. We sat in silence a long time. "Dad," he said finally, "why'd you do it?" "The app told me fairness looked like sameness," I said. "But it wasn't the app. It was me. I wanted to stop a hurt and made a worse one. I hired a lawyer," he said, as if I might correct him. "I'm glad you had someone," I said. "I hurt you. You deserved an advocate." He exhaled. "I don't want your money right now." "I know," I said. "Your boundary. I'll respect it. The offer stands if you ask later. Mom says you're taking Grandpa to court." "I'm asking him to honor what I paid," I said. "Not to punish him, to be fair to me for once." He was quiet again. Then, "I sent you something." A ping. The photo from the backyard, the one he posted. He'd added a second frame. Him smiling a little. A caption. "Congrats to me. And to my dad when he figures his stuff out." No hearts, no thumbs up. Just that. It was more than I deserved. Mom escalated when quiet didn't work. She sent Aunt Carol. "The cousins agree. You should be the bigger person. Also bring the mower. The back acre needs a pass." I sent one sentence to Ortiz. "I won't perform chores for a property held in an entity that denies my interest." James tried a new tactic: pity. "This is tearing us up, Charlie. Carrie's sick over it. Reverse the amendment," I said through my lawyer. "Record my lien." He pivoted. "Children need a family. Think of them." He meant his, not mine. I thought of mine anyway. Of Ethan's backyard cap and Ellie at the coast licking a cone she didn't finish. I thought of how love isn't a pie where one slice means less for another. Then I put on my boots and went to feed, because animals believe what you do, not what you say. Small consequences started landing like rain. The bank called Dad about a refinance. The underwriter flagged my recorded claim of equitable interest. "It complicates things," the banker said. Dad left me 3 messages in a voice I hadn't heard since I was a kid. Tight, angry, scared. "Fix this," he snapped. "You did this." "No," I wrote back through Ortiz. "You did this when you changed the rules." My sister-in-law Carrie texted me a long paragraph about community and sacrifice, then a shorter one that gave the game away. "Honestly, with 3 kids, it just makes sense for James to manage the farm. You're always so busy with your projects." "Projects?" She meant work. I didn't answer. I took a photo of my hands after a day in the field, cracked, dirty, strong, and saved it next to receipt_4_7.png. Not to show anyone, but to remind myself of what is real when words get slippery. 2 weeks in, Attorney Chin emailed. "Thank you for the retraction." The registrar removed the note. "Ethan is satisfied on that point. Regarding the $8,500 support, he declines. He does, however, ask that you stop triangulating with Ellie's AI app. He's blocked from the family dashboard." That should include you. I laughed out loud for the first time in days. Agreed, I wrote. I'm done letting a gadget parent my kids. I deleted my login. The silence in the house got cleaner. By week 3, the porch felt different under my feet. I slept 6 hours straight. I fixed the screen door that stuck since last summer. I made a decent omelet. I took a picture of the sunrise and didn't send it to anyone. When you stop serving, people take inventory. Some call you cruel. Some get resourceful. Some, to my surprise, get kind. Uncle Joe called the day before our 30-day deadline. Your dad's not budging, he said. He's embarrassed. He'll double down till he breaks. Then he'll break, I said. You okay? I'm more okay than I've been, I said and meant it. 30 days passed with no movement. So Ortiz filed. Not fireworks, just a docket number and a September date with a judge who probably owns no boots. James texted. You'll regret this. I looked at clause 4.7. My hands. Ethan's backyard cap. Ellie's ice cream. And something clicked like a fence post set true. I regret the years I made myself small. A month later, the first hearing went our way on standing. The judge said, my contributions appear significant. One sentence. A door opening. I drove home slow, fed the cows, listened to cicadas. Ethan stopped by. I start Monday. No help needed? Proud of you. He nodded at the field. If you ever need a hand. Not because I owe you. Because I'm your son. Ellie called. Past her class. December still the plan? I'll bring a stupid sign. She laughed. Deal. Mom came by. We thought we were making it easier for James. I'm someone's kid, too. Before she left, she handed me a copy of Dad's unsent apology. Not perfect, but enough. My ledger now reads sleep back. Noise down. Work honest. Kids real. Farm in limbo. But my name's in the file. I'm not the background man anymore. Closure isn't revenge. It's a boundary you say and keep. I keep one new silver key on its own ring to remind me. Tell me, have you ever felt like you had to choose between your own truth and keeping the peace? What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below.